Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Globetrotter Newscast for today, Sunday, the 14th of March. And this podcast has been moved slightly from its usual date of Monday onto a Sunday night. And as tomorrow, sadly, I am busy with commitments. But I am joined by Labour supporter Zach Chambers for tonight's podcast. Good evening, Zach.
Hello, Charlie. Hello, Charlie.
I just want to start this podcast off by paying my tributes to Murray Walker, who sadly, if you don't know who Murray Walker is, he is a commentator, a former motorsport commentator. He sadly died yesterday at the age of 97. My thoughts are with Murray's family at this very difficult time. Murray Walker was an inspiration to motorsport. He commentated on many motorsport events, BTCC, also as well, Formula One, most notably throughout the 1980s when Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost were racing, and also 1996, Damon Hill winning the championship for Williams. And Zach, what an inspiration Murray Walker was to Formula One.
Yes, Charlie. Obviously, good to start off with this, and my thoughts as well, Murray Walker. He's basically the soul of sound of motorsport on our television, on our radio for the last, 50, 60 years. He started commentating, I believe, on a Grand Prix event, I believe in 1949, which is how far his career has landed. And yes, honestly, he was just a natural sound to our ears and to describe the television to us, basically. We had some famous lines, I remember, if I rightly. They used to call them Murrayisms. That's a very good nickname. But yeah, I think, Charlie, one of the ones I most remember, and I said, was the Hill 1996 championship victory at Japan, when Murray Walker said he had a lump in his throat. And
yeah,
he
mentioned
stop
that
for one moment.
Probably
one of the most famous bits of commentary I ever heard. There's also I think it's the 2001 Italian Grand Prix when Mika Hakkinen famously spun out from the lead, and then he was describing the scenes of how passionately upset Mika Hakkinen was, and just listen to him. He was such a joy. When he made the most basic of mistakes, he always he always had a bit of colour around it to make it sound like all is forgiven. And he just made it so entertaining, Charlie. And many of those growing up in the who are probably older now and watching F1 still would have recognised his voice for what it was. I mean, he had several partnerships with James Hunt,
Martin Brundle,
Jonathan Palmer, I should say. Jonathan Palmer in the 90s. He's obviously the father of Jolyon. James Hunt as well, yes. Very most famous partnership of them all, Charlie. But yes, he commentated not only F1, he was the voice of BTCC for a while. He was a war veteran, should I just say, as well, because he fought for our country in the war. He did a lot of things. He did adverts as well, Charlie. Goodness me, would you believe it? I think he did one for Domino's Pizza once. Very tasty.
Wow.
But yeah, honestly, his career is so widening, Charlie. It's incredible, and nobody would have got into Formula One without hearing Murray Walker. And what a hero we lost. On Saturday. It saddened me so much. It really was, because he was such an iconic voice, a name that was recognized to everybody, and he'll be greatly missed, Charlie. He's a legend. He's probably he should have been awarded. He should have been awarded knighthood, because goodness me, he's one of the most brilliant voices that you could ever hear and commentate on television, in the most passionate one ever. And may his memories be a blessing, because he
honestly, Zach, he's a legend, absolute legend, Murray Walker. I want to say as well a quote that I forgot to mention from 1986 in the Australian Grand Prix at Adelaide. And look at that, colossally, that's Nigel Mansell in the Williams suffering a late race puncture with only a few laps to go, and that dented his World Championship chances. It was actually won that year, I believe, by Alain Prost in the McLaren during a three-way fight for the championship. So if you remember the 1986 Australian Grand Prix from Adelaide?
Yes,
that famous quote.
I want to add something as well. Whenever he started a race as well, I think it was Belgium '97. The first thing I saw him say, "Yes, it's go!"
Yeah,
and then the other races go, "Go, go, go!" And honestly, his magic, passionate starts, Charlie. You know, you could really tell he was up for everything, no matter how long he was. At the screens, on our screen, it would go on as long as possible. And I wouldn't want him off my screens for 1 minute because he could literally think anything he could, and it was incredible. And I remember, I think his last race he ever did. I know he retired full time in 2001. But I remember, I think his last race he did was Germany 2007 for Radio 5 Live, when David Croft had to leave because he had his wife had a baby just on that race weekend. But honestly, you could pull out a load of Murrayism's famous quotes from him, and it's just the ironicness, the casualness, and the entertainment that made him so much worthwhile, Charlie. And there can never be another Murray Walker. He is the only one Murray Walker.
Yeah, he'll be sorely missed by everyone. Murray Walker is an absolute legend, and he will be sorely missed by Formula 1. We're going to start, Zach, with Formula 1. We're going to start with pre-season testing. We'll get the motorsport right now out of the way with first. Lots to talk about. Day 3, we've got some news. Max Verstappen fastest. Mercedes had a difficult start. Lewis Hamilton spinning off yesterday at turn 13.
Yes.
What did you make of the running over the 3 days of pre-season testing in Bahrain?
Yes. So I think, first of all, let's just say this, Charlie. It's going to be difficult to judge where we are in the field this year because we've only got one pre-season test of 3 days compared to like the 2 we had of 6 days of last season. So this year, and obviously we're at Bahrain. So this is a bit more of a difficult indicator to see where the fields are. Now, let's just say from this test, Mercedes, they had a poor test, Charlie, no doubt about it. It wasn't their finest test. They had a range of problems from Lewis Hamilton spinning out on the Saturday morning to a few gearbox issues on the Friday. They had a better run than the Saturday afternoon. Still, I know they had a better run on the Sunday, but overall, there was a few problems now and here for Mercedes, obviously on different runs, not on the low fuel runs that they used to normally do. Would you still say they're going to the favourites? Yeah, I still think they're the favourites going into the first race in 2 weeks' time. Would you believe it? But it's not without its problems, Charlie, as well. That's the problem because Mercedes are normally mechanically so reliable. And yet they were suffering from gearbox issues. Obviously, Lewis made a rare error mistake. The car as well, Charlie, I have to say as well, it didn't look set up brilliantly. It's normally very smooth when you go around the racetrack. Mercedes have adapted really well. It didn't seem like that way over the past 3 days, Charlie. It seems to look like Mercedes struggling with setup, with understeer and oversteer. And they're not in the ribbon yet, Charlie, I have to say, with Mercedes. So they're not yet there. I wouldn't say they were the best team out of
no, they weren't
testing.
No.
I will say though, Charlie, the teams that did impress me were definitely Red Bull. They're looking very good, I think, so far. One of the problems I think they had last year, Charlie, was that they had a lot of rear instability in the rear, which means that Max Verstappen, like the Alex Albon, was really struggling with the car. Now, Red Bull seems to have fixed that stability problem, and they look really good on the track. Whether they're eking out the performance or not, they are looking good, actually, on the performance side. I mean, they have been running C4s today, I remember, if I rightly, on low fuel modes. But they're looking quick, and they're looking much more stabler. And AlphaTauri, can I just say, Yuki Tsunoda, what a day he had today. I think he's done very well today. He's eked out every little bit of performance out of that AlphaTauri already. He did really well. And his driving was really good. He looks like a driver that's been already there for 2-3 years and knowing every little track about it. He was really good, Charlie. Whether he can convert that to race pace I don't know. Let's see. But AlphaTauri, Red Bull, and certainly McLaren's very impressive, Charlie. And I just want to get onto the fact as well, Charlie, that they've worked around the diffuser changes this year, so that the rear diffuser is a bit higher, and they've worked around it so that they're getting all that extra aero into and downforce into that car. So they've done a good interpretation of the rules there, the rule changes there, and they've eked out good performance. I mean, the McLaren car has definitely been talked around the paddock, Charlie. Let's just say that. So I think the teams that have most come out well, I think the 3 days, are Red Bull, McLaren, and AlphaTauri. I think, in my opinion, that have come out the best.
McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo looked very strong. Ran
Yeah,
that track, not some solid 7 places. McLaren good on long run pace as well. Red Bull were good on long run pace. I have to say as well, Alfa Romeo, I didn't think they looked too bad. Ferrari, Carlos Sainz didn't look too bad actually. He looked pretty comfortable in the SF21.
Carlos had I think struggled a little bit. This is his first run in the Ferrari, so no doubt about he's going to show the odd struggle. I don't think he looked exactly too comfortable in that car. It looks like he was still getting used to it. It was like, he's just started out. He's shown off his starter skills. But he was struggling a little bit, I have to say. And he really needs to adapt to that car. I think Ferrari has shown a little bit of potential. There's already signs that they're getting there with a new power unit, for example. They're using a new power unit for this year. And it looks like they're already chumming out some improvements and using the ability to get find some extra performances. Now, it doesn't seem to me like Ferrari will be up there in the front runners again, but I think if their drivers can adapt and get confidence in themselves and confidence in the car, Charlie, I think they could do better. We could see them eke out potentially podiums, if necessary. Although, are they up there with Red Bull? Probably not. I think they're probably about the 3rd car in the line. I think McLaren, if we're going to do a rating, I think it'll be Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, if you're looking for the top 4, if in my opinion, and maybe Aston Martin behind them. But yeah, I think there's room for improvement for Ferrari in terms of getting the drivers' confidence back, especially for Carlos Sainz, who just moved there. But yeah, I think that's where the pecking order is at the moment, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Ferrari were interesting. What about Aston Martin? Vettel, I think he struggled a little bit, didn't he? He struggled a little bit with the back end coming out of turn 10 on the first day of preseason. What did you make of Aston?
Yeah, I don't think Aston I don't think this has not been the greatest as well for Aston, I have to say. Gearbox issues, reliability issues as well now, Aston Martin. And Vettel's didn't put in not a lot of long runs, I have to say, Charlie. Vettel has not got much running, really, to be fair. So he seems like the car has had problems. Whether the driver has gone anywhere, I don't think it's the driver. Vettel's problem, really. Vettel has a problem. I think Lance Stroll's had a bit more luck with the car, really, because that hasn't been plunged into technical issues, although they did have an issue later today in the afternoon session. But yeah, I think there's certainly some niggles in Aston Martin so far. They're not looking as good as we were when they left with Racing Point last season. So I think there is room for improvement there, Charlie, in terms of that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Zach, I think Aston Martin are interesting. I think they've done quite well with their long run pace. Or I think the long runs look good on the Astons, but I definitely struggle a little bit with the grip, especially coming out of turn 10. Vettel the other day, on the first day, having a massive oversteer moment, managing to correct the back end. What team disappointed you the most then, out of all of the 10 teams?
Well, disappointed me? If I'm asking for disappointment, I'd say I would say Aston Martin. I will, because they were plunged with issues. They're probably the ones that most disappointed me in terms, because I think there could be something there, but there's a lot of reliability problems that needs to be fixed in that car. I mean, gearbox issues 2 of the 3 days running, Charlie. That's a bad sign. I haven't seen much in Haas. Williams looks like they may well be the 18th or 19th on the grid this year, potentially. depending on how much performance they get in there. Haas are not even touching their car this year, I believe. I think they're going to be focusing on 22 in a few months' time. So I think Haas is going to be at the back, unfortunately. Williams are going to probably be the team ahead of them. But I think the disappointment and the ones that we were probably most expecting was Aston Martin. I think have been the biggest.
What about Alpha?
I haven't seen much of Alpha, to be fair. I think they're going to be, maybe the 7th team, 8th team on the field, really, because they've not looked like it looks like the same where they were a bit so I think, in there. But I do think, whilst Aston Martin will get there with the pace, their reliability has been disappointment. That's why I think they've been the most disappointing team on the grid. If you turn to ask me on what the best team on the grid, so I think the one that's made the most improvements, then I think the best improved one is definitely McLaren. They look very good, very, very good already, Charlie. They've as I said, they managed to work around the diffuser rules within the regulations, and they're chumping some speed into that car. I think, Charlie, they've come up with the creativity, and I think they could just be just behind Ferrari in the pecking order, or maybe even above them. I would say, Charlie. So far, I think it's that they're that good at the moment with what they've done. That I think
I'm a bit pessimistic with Ferrari at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's more the driver's thing. I think Carlos Sainz really needs to find his rhythm, because he doesn't want to. When he's in a new team, he does not want to be struggling too much. It might take a few races for him to get in there, but he will need to up his confidence during the middle of the season, I think, Charlie.
Yeah, so that's pre-season testing wrapped up for you there in Bahrain. The next race is in 2 weeks' time at Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir, and that'll be on the 28th of March, live on Sky Sports F1. Now we're going to move on to NASCAR. The actual race, I believe it's at Phoenix Raceway, I believe. That's currently on now. The Instacart 500, that's the event. I'm just to let you know, with that race, Chase Elliott was sent to the back of the grid after qualifying. But the Xfinity race, though, has actually finished. And according to NASCAR, we did have a winner. I think it was Austin Cedric who won that race in the Xfinity series.
Yeah, that's correct. And there was also a little bit of a skirmish on track. I think it was either the truck series. I think it was the truck series race. There was a skirmish. Oh no, it was the Xfinity. Sorry, it was the Xfinity race. I think there was a skirmish. I think, where I think there was a bit of a helmet throwing. I can't remember if it was last race or this race, but there was some helmet throwing, Charlie. One of the cars crashed on the track. I think there was contact between. I can't remember who, but there was a bit of a helmet throwing. Oh no, sorry. There wasn't actually helmet throwing. There was more of the gesture pointing. Someone put the middle finger up. I can't remember who it was. I kind of overlooked it. But yes, in NASCAR you do get some people with some gestures. Sometimes you get the odd brawls in the pit lane. This one's more of a gesture, but the middle fingers came up, Charlie.
Yeah, caution's just come out as well. Alex Bowman has just crashed as well. I have a little clip here. Alex Bowman has just crashed. He's got turnaround. Caution's been deployed. That was 10 minutes ago on NASCAR there as well. I will round up the proper results tomorrow. That's at Phoenix Raceway, by the way, NASCAR. Next weekend is the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500.
That's Atlanta, that is isn't it?
Yeah, and that will be at Atlanta Motor Speedway. And then, of course, at the end of the month, the Food City Dirt Race at Bristol Motor Speedway. So that's all the motorsport news there. We'll keep you updated with the race in Phoenix, the Instacart 500. Moving on now, Zach, to coronavirus. And I've just seen the figures. Very encouraging for a weekend. I know there's a lag with reporting figures, but I believe the death toll was well down. It's like 52 deaths in the last 24 hours with a positive test. Down, of course, a weekend's of lags. Total number of deaths, though, 125,516. Thoughts with all those who have lost loved ones still. Hospital admissions down to 563. That's with the vaccine. Patients in hospital, 8,029. Still high, but it's getting lower. Number of new cases, 4,618. Zach, what do you make of where we are at the moment with COVID regarding the figures and the lockdown?
We are very much improved, Charlie. I think we are. I have to say, hospitalizations, I believe, are down 84% from the peak. They're in single figures, actually, Charlie, I believe, which is quite incredible. I think as we vaccinate through and through, the hospital figures are slowly but surely slumping. It's just the case numbers that needs to come down, I think, a little bit now. We are having a little plateau in that. But, I think, we're showing signs of encouragement, Charlie. Lots and lots of encouragement. And this is exactly what we wanted to see. The next, we are 2 weeks away from the next set of easings, which is not yet, but it will be soon. And I think we're on path for further easings. Looking at it, the deaths are really, they're climbing down so much, Charlie, that this is going to be in single figures daily soon. I mean, on the weekend it's in single figures, but I think once we go through the next week or two, it'll come down to single figures, and this is good, Charlie. This is exactly what we're starting to see, and some very encouraging, news out of Novavax, I think, Charlie, where they had their vaccine. This was the one we're going to buy across 50 million across the UK. I think we bought this. I think it was 95% effective at preventing mild disease, and 100% effective against, hospitalization. So that this is looking good, Charlie. This is looking good. I have to say.
It's really encouraging, isn't it, to see the vaccine data? As well as that, 24.1 million in this country now have had their first dose. Wow. What can I say? Fantastic figure. And we're going to come on to the EU now, Zach, because there has been lots of problems in the EU, especially across parts of France, Italy and Germany. Italy, from Monday, are going to be changing their restrictions on their lockdown. And on Monday in Italy, it's not going to be great if you're living there, because I believe schools and restaurants and pubs are shutting as well.
Yep. This is one area where a vaccine would do so much good for now. And to be fair, the fact that Italy are going into lockdown for another time again, we're starting lifting restrictions with a good old vaccine rollout, makes Italy and the EU look a bit like a joke, really, Charlie. This is what happens when you do not have a good vaccine rollout. And we can kind of put the blame on the EU on this one. Yes, Italy are going to go back into lockdown. They've had a spike in cases. Who knows what we had if they had the vaccine? Probably none. They wouldn't have this spike. But this has just been badly mishandled to the point where more European countries are now going back into lockdown, and schools are closing. The hospitality is closing. Charlie, this is a very bad look, I have to say, for Italy and for the EU. I mean, fair enough if lockdown may be necessary, but goodness me, it's only necessary because of a poor vaccine rollout across the EU. They've been slumped, Charlie. There's no doubt about it. They did completely slump on the UK on this. And another horrible few weeks ahead, I'm afraid, Charlie, in terms of lockdowns and, restrictions.
That's for Italy. And you just have a look at the hospitalizations there. I heard on the news that most of the new hospitalizations are from the new UK variant that's spreading across the country.
Yeah.
Especially in the north.
Yeah. It just shows so much how much this virus has spread, actually, Charlie, and how quick the transmission of this virus, of this variant is. It's quite astonishing that it's spread so much. Really, to be fair, what's happened with it? as well. But yeah, not exactly good news there. This is what happens when you don't close your borders in the first place, to be fair. And you allow travel. I don't know how it got in really, but obviously someone must have travelled it way it's in, or someone caught it way out. But yeah, it's not a good look, I have to say, that it started to spread there, and it's caused a lot of problems in Italy. So this again, compared to what we have in the UK, it looks bad. It looks bad in Italy. It looks very bad. It's not looking very good there, I'm afraid. Not looking good. Sounds like we just lost Charlie. Yeah, so yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, let's look at where let's look at the other cases. Let's look at the UK cases in terms of us at the moment. 16 hospital. Isle of Man have passed 800. Yeah, that's not exactly brilliant, I have to say, as well. But yeah, so let's look at this 16 here. The vaccine's 23.6 million as well. It's looking good on the vaccine front, I have to say. Obviously, the UK records the lowest numbers of deaths. He's back. I think you're back. There you go.
Sorry, guys. I had one of my laptops broke down, so I've had to completely convey a new studio. But
that's right. I filled in nicely this time rather than staying silent.
Changing the figures on the in Italy, so it's not looking good there at all, isn't it? In that country, I mean, France, only about 6% of their population have been vaccinated. That's not good. And I've just heard today that Ireland have suspended the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID vaccine as well.
Yeah, this has happened across several countries in Europe, Charlie. It's very interesting. So, when for the AstraZeneca vaccine, they appeared that some people in Austria died because of blood clot issues, confliction with blood clot, and it caused a bit of blood clot in people's systems. This happened only on 2 people in Austria. But because of this situation, it's resulted in several countries suspending their operations. I'm quite shocked about that. I mean, it's 2 people. So, yeah, you would have a little bit worried and want to suspend out of precaution. But, yeah, it's not. That's very worrying, Charlie. I mean, there's been no such issues here, which is good to hear. But other countries are clearly not happy with the way the AstraZeneca vaccine is being affected. Here as well. So yeah, that not very good, Charlie. A little concern. I think if this starts spreading, if this blood clot issues comes here, then there's going to be a few questions. And to be fair, Charlie, as well, if there's some issues here as well, this would have really serious implications for the rollout, Charlie, because we're reliant on the Pfizer vaccine at the moment rather than just the Oxford as well. And relying on the Pfizer, it's going to cause significant problems if we just end up with that. So the last thing we all want to see is a suspended vaccine rollout, and this would cause mayhem to the roll of the vaccine rollout. It could have other implications, such as delaying the exiting of lockdown. That's not what we want to see happen. But yeah. The main thing is here, it's not causing too much issues, but there's been several other issues in countries, in people who have blood clots, and that's not great. And we wish these people really well, and thoughts with them.
I think, Zach, I'm going to say on here tonight that I think the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is a very safe and effective vaccine. I think the Prime Minister will say that if he gets interviewed next week, because one of my parents had it done yesterday, and they haven't reported any major side effects. So it is safe, and I believe the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer, has had his first dose today as well.
He has. He has had his first vaccine. I think it's the first major leader in the UK to have their vaccine, which is interesting. I wonder if old Farage has had his vaccine yet. He used to be leader of the Reform Party. I wonder whether he's had his vaccine yet. I haven't seen him. But yeah, Keir Starmer, I think, is the first major UK leader here to have his vaccine, which is fantastic news. He's had his first shot today. So another eight weeks to wait, I think, 12 weeks to wait, excuse me, until he gets his next shot in, I think, June.
Yeah, so Keir Starmer has his first dose of the COVID-19. I don't know what vaccine it was. It was in a clinic, so maybe Pfizer potentially. Or it could have been the Oxford AstraZeneca one, I don't know. But it was one of them. Keir Starmer has been vaccinated, which is very good news. Urges people to take the jab in a latest tweet he sent out earlier. So will Boris Johnson have his jab very soon, potentially, given that Keir Starmer's had it?
Yeah, you would have thought so. Keir Starmer is 58, Boris Johnson's 56. So you would have thought that the Prime Minister is soon going to have his vaccine. He'll probably get in the photo opportunities for that very soon. But yes, you would think it would be coming very soon, Boris Johnson's one, and that will be a key nine to watch on, I think.
So yeah, we have really got that. That's the good news there. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, should be getting his vaccine very, very soon. We'll keep you updated on that. We're going to now move on, Zach, to some news from the last week. Now, there has been a lot of protest this weekend about a Virgil that has been set up over the murder of Sarah Everard. What do you make of these scenes?
Yeah, Charlie, these scenes are utterly horrendous. And I think they're disgraceful, quite frankly. The police action over the weekend, I think, has been totally extreme, unacceptable, not necessary. This is a vigil, Charlie. This is a peaceful protest, technically, if you want to say that. And I think part ways that some of the police, what they did was not within the regulations of how they acted. It was when you think, Charlie, let's just say this, as you know, it's all nice for us men to talk about what's happening here, but this is a serious issue where women have been genuinely upset last week about this murder of Sarah Everard, and the fact that this is just blatant assault and assassination of people, and by ex-police officers, men officers, Charlie. And the fact that this person who murdered her was an actual current Metropolitan Police officer is shameful and stunning. And the fact is, this happened in the middle of the dark, where men can all do all sorts of wild behaviour. It just tells you something, Charlie, that women don't feel safe on their own in the dark. And yet they feel controlled, and yet they don't feel safe. Now, we've had some really wild suggestions this week that there should be a curfew for men for, say, 6 o'clock. Now, they do sound a bit extreme, but and it's come out with the most wildest suggestions. But the police action this weekend on Saturday was just out of order, Charlie. It was a peaceful vigil. There was no communication on how this could be safely done, by the way, between the Metropolitan Police and the organisers of this. And frankly, it looks really bad on them, the police, because quite frankly, I know people do worry about protests. I mean, if you're doing it outside, you're not very likely to get the virus when you're outside, but you're not 100% definitely not going to get it. So the thing is that in the current COVID Act regulations, Charlie, there is no legal regulation in there that doesn't say that you can't protest. Okay, so I think the police have done this half-heartedly, ridiculously, and the fact that we had men police officers trampling on and restraining women protesters is such an awful and, quite frankly, scummy look for the Metropolitan Police throughout it. I know there's going to be an independent commission into this now, Charlie, because quite frankly, some of the actions of the officers
Sadiq
were
Khan and Pretty
ridiculous,
Patel have
Charlie.
launched, I think, an investigation into this.
Yes, Sadiq Khan has referred it to the independent regulator on this. Cressida Dick has become in the firing line because she would have been involved in whether to send police to this vigil. And quite frankly, she's not come out this very well. It appears that she's not going to resign. The Keir Starmer has not called for a resignation, has not. Neither has Sadiq Khan, although the one that has called for a resignation is Ed Davey, the Lib Dems leader. Not surprisingly. I just think this is badly handled, Charlie. And, the last week has raised a question about women's safety when they're on their own. It's disgraceful that, men have to feel safe, but women don't. Why? That's ridiculous. That's stupid that we need to even think about why women are not safe in the streets. It's unbelievable, Charlie. It's quite harrowing. It's quite shocking that they don't feel safe. But, when they have when they get assaulted and, murdered in the dark of night, then by sitting police officers, then obviously there's going to be a reaction. And this is just ridiculous. I'm seeing current pictures, Charlie. There's now a protest today about the police response. And they are guarding Winston Churchill, in London at the moment. And there's protesters saying protect women, not statues. I mean, you got this week, Charlie, a bit of legislation that's coming to Commons this week, which would give the police the powers to shut down any protest that makes a little bit of noise. I mean, for all the complaints like the ERG have about saying we're a police state, then that our civil liberties are being taken away, God almighty, you should see this bill that's coming up, Charlie. It is bad. I mean, we boast about how our free speech is taken away. Goodness me, this bill does take away free speech. There's no doubt about it, because it stops you vocally giving the right to protest and make your feelings heard. I mean, say for example, if you shout a little bit and if you shout, take for instance, Black Lives Matter, they'll shout out no justice, no peace. You could they could be dispensed for saying that out loud because it becomes a disturbance. Well, that's pathetic, Charlie. I mean, free speech that people champion, it seems to be free speech, but only when it's my agenda. What the hell's happened, Charlie? This is pathetic, really. And it's shameful. And there's going to be a lot of questions over the next few weeks ahead about free speech and the right to protest, Charlie, because these laws coming in are being proposed utterly disgraceful. And we're going to hear about this over the next week, because this is just quite shameful.
Really. Going to be debated in the comments. So I'm live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, the Globetrotter Newscast right now. If you have any comments about this protest at the Sarah Everard Virgil, please let me know down in the comments, because I'd love to hear your opinion. In my view, I have to say this bill that Pretty Patel's putting forward to the House of Commons, the tabling this motion about trying to basically stop these protests. I mean, it's just crazy. People have got to peacefully protest. This is a very important thing. And I think it's just complete madness what the government are trying to do here. So let me know down in the comments what you think of this, because I honestly think, I mean, Zach, there's a big few weeks ahead for the Commons, because in a couple of weeks' time, I think there's going to be a vote on the lockdown legislation coming up. And I've just read up on Politics for All, which is a Twitter page. Boris is facing a huge rebellion over the extension of COVID-19 measures beyond the end of March. This is going to get interesting, isn't it?
Yes. So we currently the COVID regulations need to be renewed, because in those COVID regulations they have the powers to do, say, lockdowns. They have the powers to shut things, prevent things from happening. And Tory MPs want this gone now, basically. But as much as I have respect for, much as I have sympathy for them for wanting regulations gone, and they want this act gone now that we're lifting restrictions, I do think they are necessary, Charlie, because for Boris to have the powers to delay lifting restrictions if needed to be. Now, if you stop all COVID restrictions, stop all COVID regulations on the 29th of March or whenever the last day is, then you end up with a bit of a problem, because then you legally cannot force potential restrictions. All restrictions are then gone, Charlie. And that's a little bit of a problem, because how are you going to force restrictions then if you need to be? You can make advisories that, you say, we can't do this and can't do that. But it's not going to be in law, and people will still do it if they wanted to. So Boris is going to face a big rebellion on the backbenches. This will probably pass with Labour's support anyway, so it probably won't matter at the end of the day. But it's one to keep an eye out on, Charlie, to see how much of a rebellion there is. You could expect the ERG group to come out rebel, but Labour, the others, they're probably going to vote for this. I'm not sure about Lib Dems, actually, because I think Lib Dems are advocating replacing the Coronavirus Act with something else. But
it's going to be interesting going forward what we're going to see from the Tory the COVID recovery group now, as it's getting bigger. And remember, if there's if they get enough votes, the rebellion group, they could end up potentially winning the vote in the Commons, and that could really put the government in trouble.
Yeah, I would say, Charlie, it's very unlikely though, because if Labour does vote for this, if they abstain or do vote for this, then it's unlikely that these regulations will fall anyway. So yeah, I can't see it really happening, really, to be fair.
It's going to be difficult. I don't know what. I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, we'll see in a couple. We'll see in a couple of weeks' time. I mean, I do think stage 2 is very probable that we'll go ahead on the 12th of April. I'm confident, given the vaccine rollout. 24 million. We're doing so much better than the EU, without a doubt. They're struggling.
Yeah.
Look at, as I mentioned, Italy earlier. France are struggling. Germany are struggling. Italy blocked the shipment of vaccine to go to Australia as well, which I thought was quite bizarre given the EU's contradictory over vaccines. I'm glad we left the EU now after the vaccine. The vaccine hypocrisy.
Here's the thing, though, Charlie. Okay, I think we chose right. Okay, it wasn't Brexit that really caused us to do this. We could have opted out anyway of the European vaccine program. Any country in the EU at the time, which we were in the transition period, so we were subject, so we could have done this anyway. All countries, could opt out the EU vaccine program, go their own way. It's just that the United Kingdom went their own way, and were very successful with it. Where the EU have decided to all stick together, and it's come out a bit of a hammer blow for them. So I just think it was a choice basically on our side, and I think we came out the better because we chose a better option, not because of Brexit. There's no Brexit, nothing to do with Brexit, because we could have done this anyway. We could have joined the vaccination program if we wanted to, but we didn't, and turns out we did it for the better.
I think as well, Zach, that Boris Johnson did comment in the House of Commons once to Keir Starmer about staying in the European Food Medicines Agency.
And Keir made a mistake on this, because he claimed that he never voted to support an EU EU medicine program, yet his previous records show that he did support that, which he did correct. I think his spokesman corrected quite quickly about a couple of hours later. Boris Johnson, by the way, continues to make a bunch of mistakes in the House, and yet doesn't correct himself, and seems to double down. Whereas Keir Starmer made a mistake once, and yet look, his spokesperson came out with a statement within 6 hours. It's better to admit things when you're wrong than not.
It's going to be interesting, Zach, how that's going to happen. I think we're going to get an interesting debate over the next week. PMQs is on Wednesday at 12 o'clock, just to let you know. That'll be on BBC Parliament. Prime Minister's questions. Questions to Boris Johnson. We're going to finish off this now, Zach, or this podcast by talking about the biggest news of last week, and that is Piers Morgan walking out of Good Morning Britain over an interview with about Harry and Meghan's interview with Oprah Winfrey. Now, I didn't speak about this a lot last week, but what did you make of that interview?
Well, I'm glad can I just say, Charlie, I'm glad we had a Harry and Meghan free week last week, because it was all really over the internet. I was wondering whether it was going to pop up or not, but no. Today we're going to get into the Harry and Meghan interview. To me, just watching the interview on Monday night, Charlie. First of all, in my view, this is how I see it: that I do think Meghan is treated unfairly. I genuinely do think that Meghan is there's much more hostility to Meghan in the press. But what Meghan said on Monday night about, writing about the fact an unnamed member of the royal family being right about the colour of her baby's skin. I'm sorry to say, Ty, that's just plain racism. There's no dropping about it. Now, if you're a newborn, if you're becoming a mother for the first time, you would be more right about preparing for your baby, getting your toys necessary, preparing a budget if necessary, of things that you do need, buying some clothes, buying some toys, buying food, baby food. The first thing that you would not get on your mind is whether the colour of what the baby's skin is. That is, I'm sorry, Charlie, to say that. It is plain racism. I agree. There's no way around it. I'm sorry. And whatever you think of Meghan and Harry, then write about the colour of your baby's skin. It's just racist. You would not think that in the first place. I'm not caring about what the baby's skin will look like. I'm caring about whether my baby's going to be healthy or not when it comes out. That's the thing I'm more worried about, not whether the colour of the skin. I just thought it was plain wrong. And hearing about Meghan's story about, her mental health issues, she wanted to commit suicide, and and the palace not giving her any help. That's just not good look. I'm sorry, that's not a good look. And it reminds me a lot, Charlie, of what happened to when Princess Diana, when she left the royal family. And it always sounds like a similar vein in that, where she had problems with mental health. She had problems trying to get support during the marriage. It has horrible reminiscence of Princess Diana. And the thing is about it, Charlie, is that the press do go too far with Meghan sometimes. Where, let me take an example. For Kate Middleton, for example, Charlie, holding her tummy once when she was pregnant. The media was sourcing over that in a really positive way. And when you get Meghan Markle when she has a baby bump, the media are like, why is she holding her tummy like that? It's just plain ridiculous, Charlie. It's double standards, really. Does racism factor into that? Well, just for you for that. I don't know. But the Piers Morgan thing, I do like Piers Morgan, Charlie, no doubt about it. And he makes Good Morning Britain incredibly entertaining.
He's one of the most controversial television presenters out there, isn't he, for a lot of people?
Absolutely. He makes Good Morning Britain entertaining. No
holding the government to account.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done really well, holding the government to account. He's been very popular over that. But, whether you loathe him or like him, he has made mornings entertainment Good Morning Britain really fun and really entertaining. For me personally, I think he went a bit too far on the Meghan thing. He always like he has an obsession on her, and in a really bad way, like half the press and tabloids. Now, as I said, we're open to free speech, and he's had his right to views. I think the problem is Monday, Charlie. He seemed to dismiss, Meghan having suicidal thoughts, which I thought was extremely terrible, and quite awful, really. And that's not good. But whether I don't mind him making opinions about her outside the outside the suicidal thing. I didn't agree with what he said. I think he passionately voiced his opinion, but I think he went a bit too far on the Monday. And obviously on the Tuesday, he had the most famous storm out when his co-presenter Alex Bedford decided to challenge him, and he actually a bit like a snowflake, really, Charlie, when he stormed out. And he eventually ended up storming out of the program altogether on Tuesday evening, when we had that statement from ITV announcing that he left Good Morning Britain. Certainly, the show's certainly not the same about him. I'm sure he'll pop out in the news industry very soon, hopefully. But I think I didn't agree with what he said about Meghan. Let's just say that his antics are a bit over the place. I do enjoy him overall. I don't always agree with him, and I do personally enjoy him. It's sad to see him go, but maybe he took this one a little bit too far.
He could be joining GB News, just to confirm that. There's been some rumours going around.
Maybe.
Rumours going around he could be joining GB News. So that is Piers Morgan. We're going to finish off now with the final thing here on the Globetrotter Newscast. You can tune in if you're listening on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter for this shut podcast. Final thing we're going to chat about is America and Andrew Cuomo. Zach, what do you make of this story about sexual harassment claims once again now for a Democrat candidate? It was Alex Salmon a couple of weeks ago. Now it's Andrew Cuomo. What do you make of this issue in the United States with the New York governor?
Yes, Andrew Cuomo, very famous because he was the face of lockdown in America, basically, when he did his daily briefings. He was the face. Basically, everyone was tuning in because he was a very good communicator, very good performer. He put some very good performance whenever he was communicating. But he's also had scandals of care homes. He's handled it very badly there. It seems like there's been a bit of a cover-up there. And now we've had 7 women come forward accusing him of sexual allegations, including groping, inappropriate touching. All the Democrat lawmakers in New York have called for his resignation, basically. Now, there is an independent investigation going on where he could be found guilty or could be not. The Attorney General there has started an investigation whether to pursue any criminal charges. But I can't see how Andrew Cuomo surprises Charlie. I really cannot. If he does survive this, I can't see him standing in the next election because his reputation has been absolutely tattered, Charlie, into this. So I think this is the beginning of the end of Andrew Cuomo, in my opinion, really, to be fair. Yeah.
And what did you make of Joe Biden's nationwide address last week to the American people on COVID?
I thought it was pretty good, to be fair. You can just tell this is on Thursday, by the way, that this time Thursday last year was the same. The last year we were seeing Donald Trump giving an address on COVID where he seems to be downplaying it, saying that the US, COVID wouldn't even touch the US. Well, look what happened in the next few months. Joe Biden giving a more upbeat COVID address in terms of realism. He showed a bit more sorrow at the start, but has said that there could be enough vaccines to be administered for adults by the 1st of May. In fact, he's instructed the states to do that. And that he's optimistic for 4th of July gatherings, Charlie. So the rollout in the US has gone really well since Biden's come in, by the way, Charlie. They're averaging about 3 million a day now.
Over 100 million doses, I think, have been administered.
Yes, and Biden's going to pass the 100 million 100 days target soon. Obviously, 100 million have passed in total across all the times that have been administered. But obviously, 100 million 100 days is certainly on now, Charlie. And this week's been a success for Joe Biden. Not only his primetime speech, but he's had COVID release pass, 1.9 trillion relief in stimulus. It's been a big legislative success this week for Joe Biden. And it's going to be a bit more tricky from here onwards because of the filibuster in the Senate where any 60 votes are required. That's going to be a bit more difficult getting legislation done from there onwards. But we'll see. It's looking good so far for Joe Biden. He's going to go out this week, touring the United States to sell his COVID package. And he's been given 70% approval ratings for COVID, by the way. That's how well he's done, I think, Charlie. And he's done well out of this very well.
Yeah. Final question, Zach, before we wrap the Globetrotter Newscast up for this week. Kayleigh McEnany was on Fox News the other day, and she criticised Mr. Biden's address. What did you make of her criticism?
I will not really take lectures from her about criticism of Joe Biden, really, to be fair, because they're unjustified. It's same old Kay McEnany, who's now Fox News contributor, by the way. I know I'm not on her page. Let's just say that I'm not.
She claimed. She's also tweeted as well, this is unacceptable crisis at our southern border created by President Biden and his reckless open border policies. Discussing this and much more on Fox News with at Mike Emmanuel Fox at 1:30 Eastern Time. That was what she contributed there. And what did you make of, like, because Trump mentioned that during his CPAC address, didn't he, as well, about anti-borders, anti-immigration?
Yeah. Well, there is a little bit of a problem at the border at the moment. It looks like there's a bunch of child migrants that are coming in. But the way to do it, Charlie, is that you don't talk to them, you don't split up their families. You find a decent accommodation, and if you're seeking asylum, you do them in a proper way. The thing is, border discussions can be difficult, obviously, but I to be fair, it's a difficult situation. You want to be humane, but you also want to be serious. You want to look like you want, you sort out the problem. There's been a bit more people coming over than what's been expected, Charlie. And that's a problem for the Biden administration to deal with at the moment. So there's going to have to be human but serious solutions found to this, I have to say. I would take advice from Katie McEnany on how to do it, just basically separating families from children's, and, building a wall does nothing. Let's just say, Charlie, it doesn't matter if you build a wall or not. You're still going to find people coming around. And if the wall was so effective, why are people still coming in? That's the thing, though, Charlie. So I wouldn't take lectures from her about it.
Where is that with the war in the migrant crisis in Dover at the moment? It's like it gets to Nigel Farage a lot with his views on migrant crossing.
Yeah, does get to Donald Trump. Yeah. It's just it's basically angry white men having ranting about immigrants. That's very typical, of them too.
It is. So let me know what you in the United States.
Wow.
Let me know down in the comments below. That's all we got time for tonight on the Globetrotter Newscast. Thank you so much for watching, and please, everyone, stay safe, and we'll see you again next week for another update on another podcast. Take care, everyone. See you next time.